All right, you may now begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, August 1st of 2022, and this is a meeting of the Administrative and Regulatory Committee for the Board of Commissioners of the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County. Today, we have with us also Commissioner Pamela Bird and Commissioner Linda Kroom, the other two members of this committee. We also have our new Executive Director, Chelsea Andrews, as well as several members of the staff who will assist with the meeting today. We have 3 items, the first of which is approval of Administrative and Regulatory Committee minute meetings from May 16th of 2022. Is there a motion to approve these minutes? I see Linda Kroom is on mute, and I suspect Pamela may be also.
So moved.
Is there a second? I will second. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the Administrative and Regulatory Committee meeting of May 16th, 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. The first action item today is authorization to submit an FY 2022 Section 8 Management Assessment Program, sometimes referred to as CMAP certification, to Housing and Urban Development. Who would like to present that to us today?
So, good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Darcel Cox, Chief Compliance Officer with the HOC, and today I bring forth and ask for permission for you to authorize the Executive Director to submit the Housing Opportunities Commission Fiscal Year 2022 Section 8 Management Assessment Program Certification, also known as CMAP, to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. CMAP is designed to measure performance in key areas to enable program integrity and accountability. The certification includes 14 indicators. HOC could have received a maximum possible points of 145. HOC received a score of 115 or 79%, which rates HOC as a standard performer. Elliott Rule will discuss the indicators in detail where HOC received partial or no points at all. Elliott.
Thank you, Darcel. Good afternoon, Commissioners and executive staff. Again, for the record, my name is Elliott Rule. I'm a Management and Compliance Analyst with HOC's Compliance Division, and I'm going to touch on some of the indicators that received either partial points or no points. Indicators 2, reasonable rent, and 3, determination of adjusted income, received scores less than the total possible points. Reasonable rent refers to comparing rents to similar units prior to approving an increase in rent to owners. Determination of adjusted income includes verification of income, assets, and allowable deductions, as well as using correct utility allowances where applicable. The decreased scores were the result of quality control findings at the processing level. Within HRD, the housing specialist processes rent reasonableness when owners request an increase in rent. They also process initial, annual, and interim certifications, which require determination of adjusted income.
Sorry, Elliott, can we advance to page 3, I believe it is?
Sorry.
Of this packet, sorry. Okay, thank you.
Determination of adjusted income. The determination of adjusted income indicator includes a compliance review of 117 actions, a total of 100 passed. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I think I skipped the rent reasonableness. The rent reasonableness indicator includes a compliance review of 66 actions, a total of 58 passed, resulting in a score of 87.87%. A score of 98% or higher is required to receive the full 20 points for this indicator. The determination of adjusted income indicator includes a compliance review of 117 actions, a total of 100 passed, resulting in a score of 85.47%. A score of 90% or above is required to receive the full 20 points for this indicator. The compliance and HRD teams will meet quarterly to discuss quality control review outcomes and identify training needs. The HRD team will work with staff at the processing level to correct any deficiencies identified. Indicator 10, correct tenant rent, received a score of 0. The The score for this indicator is based on a sample of quality control files that the Compliance Division reviewed, which included initial, annual, and interim certifications. The findings included issues with factors related to the calculation of tenant rent portions. For this particular indicator, we would have needed to get a 98% in order to get the full points or any points. The compliance and HRD teams will meet quarterly to discuss quality control review outcomes and identify training needs. The HRD team will take corrective action immediately upon confirmation of any oversight. 2 inspections related indicators also received a score of 0. Indicator 6, HQS enforcement, measures the degree to which inspection deficiencies are corrected within the required time frame, which is 24 hours for emergency repairs and 30 days for other repairs, as well as abatement of housing assistance payments due to the owner's failure to correct these issues. Indicator 12, annual inspections, measures the degree to which we perform annual inspections timely, which is every 12 months. HOC's Inspection Services Department experienced critical staffing turnover and organizational restructuring during the fiscal year 2022. Inspection Services is now housed within the Housing Resources, or HRD, division, and is under the direct control of the Director of HRD. HRD is currently working to correct any issues that may have contributed to the deficiencies of the inspection-related indicators. HOC staff continues to work diligently to improve the accuracy of all HCV program activities. Specific attention is placed on quality control reviews for the items outlined above, customer annual recertifications, third-party income asset and deduction verifications, inspections, income and rent calculations, rent reasonableness activity, and enrollment and progress in the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. Over the past 2 years, HOC increased the score for indicator 14, family self-sufficiency, by increasing the FSS enrollment rate from 66.94% to 81.63%. HRD also increased the percentage of families with escrow balances from 55.51% to 66.38%. The threshold for receiving points for this indicator is 30% for the escrow-related portion. HRD recognizes the importance of the FSS program to voucher participants and continues to strive for increased participation and participant progress. Federal regulations require HUD to issue its final ratings to HOC within 120 days of HOC's fiscal year end. The notification letter from HUD will require HOC to respond within 45 days if there are any corrective actions for any CMAP deficiencies. HOC staff will promptly address and correct any issues that HUD identifies. Notwithstanding the regulatory requirement for timely response to any identified deficiencies and stated corrective actions, staff has begun to discuss procedures to implement to ensure quick response to any noted concerns within the voucher program. Staff will also include a quarterly update as part of the HRD report to the Commission. Our issue for consideration is, does the Administrative and Regulatory Committee wish to join staff's recommendation to the Commission to authorize the Executive Director or her designee to submit the fiscal year 2022 CMAP certification to HUD on or before August 29, 2022? It's for discussion by the Administrative and Regulatory Committee at today's meeting, August 1st, 2022, for formal Commission action on August 10th, 2022. Staff recommends that the Administrative and Regulatory Committee join staff's recommendation to the Commission to authorize the Executive Director or her designee to submit the fiscal year 2022 CMAP certification to HUD on or before August 29th, 2022. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Lynn Hayes, the Director of the Housing Resources Division.
And actually, before Lynn gets started, I'll just make some quick introductory remarks. Again, Chelsea Andrews, Executive Director, and thank you, Commissioners, for your time today. As you can see with this report out, there have been some consequences as it pertains to the pandemic and staff turnover that we are now, of course, dealing with and proactively planning for how to address in the future. Our compliance team definitely did a thorough job of looking at where there were opportunities for improvement. However, I do want to acknowledge and thank the staff as it pertains to the areas that we've either improved or maintained in the midst of the transition in these last few years. We have seen significant staff turnover, and in fact, our customer base has also been impacted over the last few years as a result of the pandemic. Need for ongoing and reinforced training, especially as we onboard new staff, is a key way that we will address some of these issues, as well as automation and constant monitoring and reporting out to the Commission on our path to improve these areas. areas. Our typical protocol would be for the compliance team to do this report out and to answer questions. But considering the significant shift and quite frankly, the robust plan that Lynn Hayes has in place with our HRD program and Housing Choice Voucher program, wanted to afford an opportunity for you to hear firsthand on how we intend to address these issues. And with that, I will pass it to Lynn Hayes.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you, Chelsea, for that introduction. I'd like to acknowledge the reduction in the CMAP points in the areas of adjusted income and tenant rent. The past 2.5 years, as Chelsea indicated, have been challenging for staff working through a pandemic. However, we've made significant accomplishments throughout the year. Staff have continued to serve all of our customers while working remotely. We've processed all annual recertifications, interactions, and certifications while using new technology. We began using EcoMail to automate the delivery of all incoming mail. We've increased our program utilization rate to 95%. We've increased our FSS program size to 376 families. We've graduated 11 families from the FSS program, including 4 home buyers. We recently began using Rent Cafe, which is a module within the Yardi software, to allow our customers to submit their annual recertifications and interim changes online. We conducted 22 refresher trainings to housing specialists regarding the Housing Choice Voucher program requirements, including income calculations, medical expense deductions, and prorated rent calculations for mixed households or households with mixed immigration statuses. We also implemented Google Classroom trainings with recorded trainings so staff can revisit the training materials. During the pandemic, we faced numerous challenges. Correspondence was often delayed or not received at all, at times because of issues with the postal system. Some customers had challenges using the technology systems that were in place. Several customers lost jobs, resulting in a higher submission of interim changes or a higher workload for staff. The attrition rate has increased from 32 per households to 50 households, again, resulting in a higher workload for staff. Though staff trainings have been continuous, the inability to meet in person also had an impact on staff. Though trainings through Zoom may be practical, they're not always the most impactful as meeting in person with a supervisor or a trainer. The Great Resignation was real for our division. During the pandemic, 17 housing specialists resigned. This increased vacancy rate posed a strain on the existing staff and the reallocation of work. And lastly, several staff were out on family medical leave because they either were ill or took leave to care for their family or other family members. So to combat these issues and increase our CMAP score next year, we will, as Elliot mentioned, meet with the compliance team quarterly to discuss systemic findings and provide staff training. We will continue to conduct quality control reviews and meet with staff individually to provide feedback in areas needing improvement. We will continue to update the standard operating procedures and administrative plan to incorporate regulatory and procedural changes. We will continue to conduct monthly refreshers with the HRD trainer in person, and we will also continue to record these trainings. We are in phase 1 of returning to work, so our staff are coming in, which will afford us the ability to meet in person and provide kind of one-on-one individualized trainings. We will continue our recruitment efforts to secure qualified candidates. Currently, there are 3 housing specialist vacancies, of which we have made a recommendation to fill one of those vacancies. And lastly, we will utilize Rent Cafe, which again allows customers to complete their annual recertifications online and upload third-party verification forms directly into our software, minimizing the loss of documents and the requirement to obtain third-party verifications directly from the source. And so I'm happy to take any questions if you have them, and I can also give just a little update on what we're doing with the inspections as well.
That's gonna be my question. That's gonna be my
For
question with the
inspection?
inspection.
Sure. So we are meeting with the inspection contractor, which is IEI, Inspections Experts Incorporated, monthly, to check in and provide the report of required inspections. We also are requiring IEI to utilize our software of record and input their data directly into our software. IEI, we have made tremendous progress. Last month, they conducted over 1,700 inspections. They've increased the number of inspectors dedicated to our portfolio from 6 to 11 inspectors, and sometimes 12 if needed. We are tracking the inspection activity through Yardi reports and Yardi dashboard and comparing that data with PIC, which is HUD software system that collects centralized data from the housing authority. So we're monitoring it. We've seen an increase in the number of inspections, and just meeting and tracking and using reports and data and dashboards to ensure that we are on the right track.
Lynn, the question I wanted to ask is, will Commissioner Kroon, will we get back to the home inspections?
Yes.
Do you know?
Yes, we are conducting home inspections now and virtual inspections if requested by the resident. But yes.
Okay. And the second question was, with this score, and we've been in the pandemic for 2.5 years, did rent play a factor on this report as well? Residents paying rent on time?
For sure it did. I'm certain it did. There were some COVID money available throughout the county that I believe our customers could apply for, but there also was an eviction moratorium where landlords could not evict, and so there was some leniency in collecting the rents. But yes, it definitely did have some impact.
Thank you, Lynn.
Sure, certainly.
Does Commissioner Byrd have any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Okay, great. I would like to also thank you for the fact that you have improved in the family self-sufficiency program, and I know the next issue relates to that, so I'll save any detailed comments for the next item, but it's good to see that and how many areas you were able to keep at the full number of points given what everyone has been through with the pandemic and simultaneous surprise work at home, where it's much easier to train and supervise what's going on. So thank you for what you have done to keep as well as you have, and to make sure that we remain as at least a standard housing agency. I would like to just ask a couple of things.
Sure.
You mentioned that you're recording training for staff, and that with the new software, some of our residents have had challenges. Are you recording any trainings that residents could access for how to better use the new software so that they can have a better input, which will help with the processing and the outcomes?
Sure. And Darcel may want to jump in, but so yes, we are. I believe they're video. So if a customer doesn't have access to submit their recertification with their own personal device, a computer or telephone, they can come into one of our locations and use one of the kiosks that are there. And so there are, I believe, video snippets and instructions and a direct link to our call center if they need help in submitting their information.
This is accurate, yes.
Great. Is there anything like a YouTube video that if they do have access at home, you could simply email them the link and they could open it up at home and watch?
I'm pretty sure that's something we can look into and see, and we can get back to you, but we can look into that.
Great, great. because I know simultaneously another effort is to make sure everyone does get broadband and have access. So that could be useful for folks as well. From reading this, it wasn't as clear to me that we were already starting to fix the problems to the extent that you've just described. That's very good to hear. And the quarterly reports will be a way of checking up on that. I will look forward to getting additional reports here at this committee meeting as they become available. But I commend you on the fact that you have gotten the vacancy rate back down as low as you have, given how challenging hiring is, and as well as everything else right now. So congratulations on that. I hope
Thank
you
you.
can keep that up and fill your last couple of spots and
Thank
have a
you.
fully trained staff soon. And I just encourage cross-departmental cooperation on this. I know from what we've heard in the past on these exact issues that they're very complex processes and the regulations are very exacting, and the need to follow them carefully and consistently is a challenge. So
Yes.
I ask everybody to cooperate and help us get back to being stellar and high performing. As we know, all of us in Montgomery County always like to think that we are a cut above. So while I am impressed that we have managed to maintain standard during the pandemic, I'm looking forward to hearing that we are performing back up at the high performing level as soon as possible. But thank you all.
Thank you.
With that, I would ask, is there a motion that the committee recommend to the full commission authorization for staff to submit the 2022 Section 8 Management Assessment Program certification to HUD?
So moved.
I've heard a move, two moves, so we'll take one as a move and the other as a second.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Kroom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great, it's unanimous. And now the next item is further detail on the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, some of the changes that HUD has made in development of this program and its combination with another pilot program results in a requirement for a specific action plan to be submitted that's specific to family self-sufficiency. And I have to tell you, it was very educational for me to read this. I actually learned a lot about the details of the program and appreciate that.
Oh, good.
Lynn, are you going to be the one who will
I
be?
am going to be, yes, I'm going to introduce this one as well. So thank you for that introduction. You kind of given the introduction, but I will reiterate what you've said. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program, or FSS, is a voluntary program offered to all families participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. HUD requires that housing authorities work in collaboration with public and private sector partners to provide supportive services, case management, and an escrow account to families participating in the FSS program. HUD published the Streamlining and Implementation of the Economic Growth, Regulatory Relief, and Consumer Protection Act on May 17th, 2022, effective June 16th, 2022. The final rule mandates numerous changes to the FSS program that must be implemented no later than November 14th, 2022. As a result, we must update our action plan that describes the policies and procedures used to operate the FSS program by September 30th, 2022, and we must submit the plan to HUD for their approval no later than September 30th. So it's a lot of information. The final rule stipulates regulatory changes and discretionary changes. I'm not going to highlight the regulatory changes, which are things that we must do, but I'm going to touch upon the discretionary items that we are recommending for implementation. So chapter 1, the discretionary change that we're recommending is that we will review the action plan at least annually, once a year, to reflect regulatory and operational changes. Chapter 2, and I don't know if you want to go to the actual chapter or if you just want to follow along with the memo, but chapter 2 relates to maintaining our program size. So our FSS program size is 441 families. What is discretionary is every time someone graduates from the program, we can reduce our program size by that number of graduates who leave the program, or we can opt for a larger program size. We're recommending that we maintain our mandatory program size of 441 families. The next item is regarding a cooperative agreement. So this final rule also included PBRA, or project-based rental assistance, to execute family self-sufficiency programs. If a PBRA owner were to execute or begin an FSS program, they would be responsible for the oversight of the money or the escrow management and presenting that information to HUD through a 50059, which is different than how we report in the voucher program our demographics to HUD through a 5058 form. If we were to implement PBRA program into the FSS program, then HOC as the public housing authority would be responsible for the case management or supportive services. So we discussed this with our executive director and decided that we would revisit this next year. So as we are updating the FSS action plan annually, this is something that we could revisit if we wanted to extend this to PBRA program participants as well. The other thing is, if we do offer the FSS program to PBRA units, it's not just for families who were formerly public housing residents, but any resident that lives in that property or project. Chapter 3 is related or regarding the money and how we will fund the program. So what we are recommending is that we will utilize our HGV, or Housing Choice Voucher, administrative fees and funds that we receive from Montgomery County government to pay for FSS salaries that are not covered in the FSS grant. And so this is what our current practice is right now. We are supplementing the grant funds with funds from the administrative fees and grant money that we receive from Montgomery County. We will not use our unrestricted net position funds to pay for supportive service. We don't do this right now. We learned that this was highly unlikely. To pay for our supportive services, we will use a forfeited escrow account funds, and also refer families to partnering agencies if they need supportive services. So one of the changes, the regulatory changes in the FSS program, is if someone, an FSS participant, accrues escrow and they don't successfully graduate from the program, that money is then put into a forfeited account. Historically, that money was used or put back into our housing assistance payment, our HAP expenses. Now that money has to be used solely for services or for training for the FSS coordinator. So it's money that is used to provide services if needed. The next bullet is indicating that we'll use the forfeited escrow accounts for families who are in good standing, as requested in using the money to complete an interim goal or task as identified in their individual training and service plan. We will prioritize the use of those funds on a first come served basis based on the date and time of the request. And then lastly, we will seek assistance from the Resident Advisory Board in identifying potential members to serve on the program coordinating committee. So one of the new requirements this year is that the program coordinating committee must include a resident from the voucher program. So we will solicit for families to participate in that regard and also get input from the RAD board. Chapter 4 is related to selecting and serving our FSS families. So we'll offer monthly case management information and referrals, educational workshops, and priority in homeownership programs and escrow accounts as incentives to join the FSS program. We currently follow this practice right now. This is not new. We also will conduct our outreach efforts in English and Spanish, which we currently do. Upon request, we will translate into other languages if needed. This next item is new, that we will establish a wait list for the FSS program when enrollment exceeds 400 participants or 90% of our program size. We're recommending that the wait list be set up or construed similar to our regular housing choice voucher wait list, where applicants are selected according to the date and time of their application submission. And we are not recommending to have any preferences for the FSS program. The next item is that we will conduct motivational screening for interest in the FSS program, which would entail simply attending a briefing workshop. And we don't want to screen people based on educational background or income background. So there are no discriminatory practices. So it's simply whether or not someone attends a briefing. We will deny participation in the FSS program if the family owes a debt to the agency. However, if they've executed a repayment agreement and are in good standing with the terms of the agreement, then we would allow them to enroll in the FSS program. We will allow a family to re-enroll into the FSS program a second time if they did not successfully graduate or complete the obligations as executed in the contract of participation. So that is something that's new, allowing re-enrollment. We will require each adult member of the household to certify their agreement as to who the FSS head of household will be. So one of the regulatory changes in the program is that any household member can be the head, designated as the head of household for the FSS program, and all family members have to agree on who that individual is. So we would require the entire family to certify who the designated FSS head of household is, and whoever that designated individual is the person that is required to meet the contract requirements, which now there are only two mandated requirements, which is being free of welfare and having employment on the last day of the contract. And whoever is designated as the FSS head of household is the person who would receive the escrow funds. And then lastly, we will conduct an informal needs assessment before executing the contract of participation, which we currently do. And then after we enroll, a formal assessment will be completed by a partnering agency. Chapter 5 references the contract of participation. HOC will not terminate the FSS contract if the family has violated the terms of the lease, if they have requested an informal hearing and prevailed. We will not terminate the contract of participation if the family fails to meet the contract obligations for good cause. Good cause is defined in, I believe, Chapter 2 of the action plan, and good cause, examples of good cause would be death or services not available, something beyond the participant's control. We will modify the contract of participation upon mutual agreement from the FSS head of household and the FSS counselor. We will continue to offer supportive services to former FSS families free of charge. So what this means is we have, yes. Do you have a question?
Maybe you want to go ahead and finish what you were about to say, but then I have a question about this.
Okay, sure. And so there are some FSS program participants who graduate from the FSS program, but still remain on the voucher program. And so if there are supportive services that we could coordinate that are of no cost to us, then we would continue to do that. Like right now, we currently offer financial literacy to everyone on our wait list. So it's services that don't cost money to families who are no longer in FSS, but possibly still in the voucher program. Yes, Commissioner Kelleher.
Okay, that is, I think, helpful to my understanding. I was wondering why we would continue to provide services if they didn't meet their obligations, because that seemed counterintuitive as an incentive to have them meeting the obligations, and a bit contradictory to the second bullet point there, which said we will use forfeited escrow account payments for fee-for-service participants in family self-sufficiency participants in good standing. And so perhaps it's just some wording that needs to be clarified, that these are services that cost us nothing, that would be available to everyone who's a voucher holder anyway, since I definitely recognize that whether they meet their family self-sufficiency requirements or not, they remain a voucher holder so long as they meet the voucher participation.
Yes, and so this last bullet that I was just speaking in terms of was really not referencing families who did not meet their goals, but to families who have graduated, so they did meet their goals. And so if we need to reword this to make it clear, we certainly can do that.
Yeah, I think if you clarify, I assumed it was people who sort of dropped out
No,
without finishing, so that's
No.
great. Okay, good,
Okay.
thank you.
sure. And then the last bullet is the grievance and informal hearing procedures for the FSS program is the same process that we've adopted for the regular housing choice voucher program participants as identified in Chapter 19 of the administrative plan. Chapter 6 references the escrow account. HOC will disperse interim payouts from the escrow account before completion of the contract of participation, when funds are needed to complete an interim goal or for a one-time payment. The FSS participant must be enrolled in the program for a minimum of 12 months, and the withdrawal amount is limited to 25% of the accrued escrow. This is our current process. This is not new. We're recommending to continue with this manner. Dispersing the interim and final payouts, we will verify that the family has completed the interim goals and the contract of participation and is no longer a recipient of welfare assistance before we disperse the final payout. And lastly, we will provide FSS participants with an annual statement indicating their escrow balance every year. And that's a current practice. That's something that we do right now. Chapter 7 references portability in the housing choice voucher program. And the discretionary policy that we are suggesting is that if the FSS family has established residency in Montgomery County for at least 12 months prior to admission to the housing choice voucher program, then we would approve their request to port or move to another jurisdiction during their first 12 months of their contract. And so this policy mimics the admission policies for regular housing choice voucher customers as well. And so that is a high level overview of what we are recommending. It is a lot of changes, a lot of materials. Thank you for reading it all. We again are required to submit our action plan to HUD no later than September 30th. HUD will take a 45-day turnaround to review and approve it or give comments or feedback so we can get this plan executed. And in the interim, we cannot enroll new FSS participants in the program until HUD approves our action plan. So our hope is that you would support our recommendation to take this to the commission in September. So right now we have a 45-day public comment period that will end on September 11th. And then we will conduct a public hearing and also in the interim meet with the RAD board to introduce these changes and also obtain their support for this plan. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have regarding the FSS program and action plan.
Do my fellow commissioners have any questions for Lynn?
Yeah, I have one. I want to thank staff because I got a in-service of this on July the 28th, so I understand it very well. And I just want to ask one question, Lynn.
Sure.
If a person ports out in the 12 months and they go to another place to stay, will they have to get into another FSS program if they
Oh,
have
right.
it?
It's very confusing. The port rules are very intense, but yes, if the receiving housing authority administers an FSS program, then the customer who ports could continue in the FSS program. If the receiving agency does not have an FSS program, then the FSS process program would be terminated for that family. One of the new regulatory changes is if that should occur, if the family were to port and the receiving agency did not have an FSS program, then the family would be eligible to receive disbursement of their escrow accrued payment, even though they did not graduate from the program. So that's one of the new regulatory changes. Someone could possibly receive their escrow payout, though they didn't graduate, if they port to another jurisdiction that does not administer the FSS program.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Byrd, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I have 2.5 questions left.
Okay.
The first one is really more of a suggestion
Okay.
in that as you're looking at residents to put on the board or other people to put on the board, consider perhaps an alumni of the
Sure.
program,
Yeah.
someone who has successfully gone through it and could provide some perspective from what they went through to the board, which might be helpful.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
sure. The second one has to do with the program size. I know the calculation of our size is done by HUD to come up with the 441.
Yes.
And as I can see on, let's see, page, I think it's 40. We currently have 385. Somewhere I found we had 300
I
and,
think
I'm sorry, 358
Mhm.
members, which means we need to recruit 83 more to meet that 441. Part of me wants to ask how you're going to recruit those additional members, because that's percentage-wise a fair amount to increase by. But before we do that, you had said that if people graduate, you're not going to reduce the 441, you're going to keep it the same. My early experience in life working for the Office of Management and Budget makes me very leery of committing to things like that when funding for programs can go up and down based on legislatures deciding how much to appropriate or not appropriate to various agencies. Might we consider a slight modification that we will continue that size so long as we have reasonable expectation of the financial resources to support it? Because I would hate to be in a situation where we have committed to that size and we lose a chunk of funding from any public source who's we're getting funding from both federal and local level for this, and then are still stuck with figuring out how to staff it and provide the resources. So I would suggest some caution in that regard in our commitment to maintaining the size.
Okay.
With that, how do you plan to get up to the 441 and maintain it, given that we have only recently achieved having the number in that we do, and we're still short about 83 people
So
for families?
we had increased our program size to 376. And ironically, we saw significant growth during the pandemic. where other housing authorities or agencies did not grow their program, we did significantly. Over 100, I want to say, families were added within the last year, and we cold called. As the counselors were working remotely, they were provided with a list of all housing choice voucher customers, and they got on the phone and cold called. And so that's how we were able to increase our program size. I think we will attract more families as the program has changed, and there are a lot more benefits to joining the FSS. So I think that the new mandated requirements will help us to attract families. The regulatory changes stipulate that families can continue to accrue escrow if they earn over 50% of AMI. So the old rule or old contract was, once you're at 50% AMI, you stop accruing escrow. They've now changed it to 50 to 80% AMI, you can continue to accrue escrow. The contract term can be longer. Any household member can execute the contract. So I think these things will be attractive to our families, and will want to join and get the escrow. It's, we're interviewing for that position, and someone said the FSS program is one of the best kept secrets. So I hope that we will continue to grow. Right now we're at a stop because we cannot register or enroll new families until HUD approves our action plan.
Right, which is why we certainly want to help you out with that today.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
That's good. It sounds like you've identified the salient features of the program, and it does sound as if it's a good deal. Essentially, the people are creating savings accounts to support their own future at the same time that we are providing the services that are going to help them get to the point that they can wisely invest those funds in success for their own
Exactly.
family. So
Well said. Yes.
win-win situation. Sounds great.
Right.
Okay, with that then, is there a motion to recommend to the full commission that they authorize staff to submit the Family Self-Sufficiency Action Plan to Housing and Urban Development?
So moved, Commissioner.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. With a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous, and we wish you great success as you continue to expand this program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, commissioners.
With there being no further business, I will call this meeting adjourned, and everyone enjoy your evening and drive home safely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Commissioner.
one.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.